There's no denying my heart is in many ways in Europe. From the moment I stepped foot on the continent to my first time biting into a croissant in Marais, there are so many times I have scattered pieces of my heart around this continent. And I'm convinced Europe is always calling me home. But as for the most beautiful cities in Europe, I can't pick just a few. Europe is full of fascinating cities. From capital cities like Budapest and Prague to the smaller cities of Alesund and Bruges, there are so many defining moments and moments I've had on my solo adventures across Europe. If you're anything like me and seek out the best, you've come to the right place. This is my definitive list of the most beautiful cities in Europe. The capital of Italy's region of Tuscany is commonly regarded as one of the most beautiful cities in the world. After visiting a handful of times over the years, I've got to say I wholeheartedly agree. Florence is home to so much living history from the Renaissance period. You'll be forgiven for giving yourself whiplash as you try to look in every direction. There are few cities I can say compare to the beauty of Paris, but Vienna is one such city that comes close. It has been described to me as a cleaner version of the French capital, and having visited both a number of times, I can't argue with that. The coffee house culture is, however, my favorite aspect of Vienna. It has a way of transporting you to a I've said it before and I'll stand by it time after time. Edinburgh would have to be one of the most underrated cities in Europe, if not the most. There's something so magical and ethereal about this city that wins the hearts of many, myself included, almost instantly, or in my case, before you even arrive. Bonus, there are a bunch of Harry Potter locations in Prague is undeniably one of the most charming cities to visit the world over. With a unique 1009 of Gothic, Romanesque and Renaissance architectures, this city has endless beauty. The old town is abuzz with visitors any time of year. Therefore, if you are trying to escape the crowds, get off the beaten path. Many of my favorite finds in Prague cannot. Visiting Germany for the first time is a feast for the senses. But if you are looking for the most beautiful German city to visit, look no further than Munich. This romantic city in the south of Germany is characterized by its beer halls, cafe culture and charming architecture that makes the city beautiful despite the changing seasons. Year-round this Bruges is a city so beautiful, you'd be forgiven for thinking you were in a real-life storybook. Commonly regarded to as the most beautiful city in all of Europe, Bruges' old world charm has an authenticity that isn't often mimicked in cities when hordes of travelers find out about its existence, but somehow it has managed to retain its charm. When you arrive in Verona, you might pass out in sheer disbelief of how our city can be so darn beautiful in such a casual, cool girl kind of way. Verona is said to be the birthplace of Romeo and Juliet contentious. However, you'll soon see how the rumor started when you spend more than 5 minutes in the place. Marais is the kind of postcard town you think wouldn't exist in real life, but speaking from experience I can say with certainty that it is even more beautiful in person. Hard to believe, I know. Located in the southeast of France, the city overlooks Lake Annecy, has its own system of waterways and isn't far from the Alps, leaving it with a pinch me. city as lovely as Budapest, it's no wonder the Hungarian capital has become a hotspot for travelers doing the loop around Europe. Just a 3-hour train ride from Vienna, Budapest is an essential stop in Central Europe, not only for its unique and fascinating history but also for its grandeur and beauty that could rival even Paris. The city is It didn't take me long to fall in love with Barcelona, one of Europe's most vibrant cities. Full of color, magnificent gaudy architecture and some of the best food you'll find across Europe, but as brave as anyone. There's so much to love about this city. As far as beauty goes, you can't beat the endless architectural marvels in Barcelona. It's a picture perfect. Amsterdam is one of Europe's most visited cities, and for good reason. Once known as the weed capital of the world, California's legalization and those that followed suit has dulled it down. Amsterdam has a lively appeal that attracts young travelers with magnetic force. With its canals and famous canal houses, this is easily one of the most If you've been on this block before, you'll know firsthand that my obsession with Paris is real as it gets. If you can see Paris through the lens of the 1950s, you'll fall even more in love with the city of light, full of culture, art and a living literary history through its many cafes, bars, streets and sidewalks that have appeared in the works of the lost. I didn't spend enough time in Malta, but I'm itching to go back. This country is full of beautiful architecture, an impressive history, and some of the loveliest locals you'll meet. They are proud to call Malta home and they can't wait to share it with you. Valletta, the capital, is at the heart of this country and having been established in 1500, is as old as it. Copenhagen is one of the prettiest seaside cities and as classic as Nordic cities come. Nyhavn, the collection of colourful houses by the sea, is one of Europe's most photographed spots, and for good reason. It looks too beautiful to be real. However, there is much more of this city to discover when you venture into the city streets, castles. When I visited Stockholm for the first time, I knew it wouldn't be the last. The capital of Sweden is so charming and quaint that you'd be forgiven for forgetting this is a city of almost 1 million inhabitants. The city encompasses 14 islands, and thus much of it is surrounded by water, connected by bridges and illuminating effortlessly in the setting. Tallinn is Europe's fairy tale town, the one and only city where you simply cannot, at any turn within the old town walls, be surrounded by what feels like magic. There's an When you hear people talk of the prettiest city in Norway, you never really hear them say Alesund. I'm changing that. Having had Bergen on my bucket list for quite some time, I was surprised to see the incredible Art Nouveau architecture of Alesund. And quite frankly, I was stunned that I had not stumbled upon it sooner. Having rebuilt after a fire in Like most cities located on a body of water, Seville has a sense of romanticism about it that breeds a type of beauty indescribable by words alone. The city is set along the Guadalquivir River, characterized by narrow winding streets and Arabic influence. This 1009 of cultures and centuries makes it one of the most beautiful cities in Europe, and certainly Zurich is one of the most beautiful cities in all of Switzerland, and just by looking at photos alone, it isn't hard to see why. This city is charming with an attention to detail like no other. Lisbon is still one of my favorite cities in Western Europe, despite becoming one of the most popular and trending cities in Europe over recent years thanks in part to how affordable it is. The city is bursting with color and life at every turn, especially in the neighborhood of Alfama. I wasn't expecting to love Strasbourg nearly as much as I did, and as such, considered it a stopover city en route to Colmar in the Alsace region. However, this would have to be one of Europe's most underrated, prettiest cities. Bordering Germany, the French city has a unique blend of architecture that you won't find elsewhere. Ghent will steal your heart in an instant. This university city is an interesting one. Old and looks but young at heart, with a thriving student population that make this a really fun city to visit. Only a short train ride from Bruges. I would argue if you're visiting one you must visit the other. They're both so similar but yet so different. I will never forget the first time I visited Rome. It was with my father at 17 years of age, and perhaps the single most city I remember most. Every detail. We were both visiting Europe for the first time and were in awe of the history, so much so that it almost feels like a dream looking back. We spent a week exploring the sites and eating our way into Dubrovnik became really popular around 5-6 years ago and has only increased in popularity since becoming one of the main shooting locations for HBO's Game of Thrones. This city is as pretty as a postcard with an idyllic location on the seaside, a combination that can't be beaten. Despite being the capital, Warsaw is not the first city many travelers think of when visiting Poland. I too had fallen into this trap and considered Krakow the only city I desperately wanted to visit on my first time in the country some 10 years ago. As it turns out, Warsaw is just as if not more beautiful to explore and has a wonderful old town that Reykjavik was much smaller than I expected, but also more beautiful than I could have imagined. The people in particular are extremely friendly and proud of their nation, eager to learn where you are from and what brought you to Iceland. Wandering the streets on foot is the best way to get around. Just be sure to allow yourself to get lost, as this is. This list would not be complete without Venice, one of Europe's most visited and sought-after cities to visit. The sinking city is said to have a time limit in place, so be sure to make it a priority. When I arrived in Antwerp, I wasn't sure what to expect because, quite frankly, I hadn't heard a thing about it. As it turns out, this was one of my favorite cities to discover in Belgium. Full of young people, extremely fashionable and fun to ride a bike around. The city centre is beautiful to stroll around, and you could spend at least a couple of days. London will always be one of the most beautiful cities in Europe, and there's no denying it has earned its title as one of the world's most visited cities year after year. For the royal fans, myself included, there is much to see and do in support of the royal family. Or you can simply spend a few hours walking the streets of Mayfair pretending to be posh Notter. Subscribe to the channel and click like, please.